What? Hey, Shaun, we're going live any second now. Who do you want to do a shout out to?
Yes, I would love to give a shout out to my massage therapist, Brooke, who has heard about this show, and I have encouraged her to watch us. So hopefully you're watching this. And if so, Brooke, hey, you finally made it to the show. Shout out.
Welcome to the show, Brooke. See you in a second. Massage therapist. Interesting. So today we're going to have a fascinating discussion, guys, about non-local reality with Shaun Rosado. He's been on a couple other times and is always fascinating. Shaun is a sci-fi geek and pop culture enthusiast. Together we'll explore the cutting-edge research and theories surrounding this mind-blowing concept of non-local reality. Our traditional and traditional understanding of space, time, causality, all the words that I don't understand, but I wrote them down, and now I'm going to have to talk about them. We got things from quantum entanglement to remote viewing, and we'll delve into the latest insights and developments in this exciting field. So, Shaun, I'm going to sit back, relax. I'm just going to ask you questions, and you're going to tell me all about non-local reality. I got one big question first.
Yes.
This is going to set up our whole discussion.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, what is reality? Then we'll talk about non-local reality.
Okay, so reality is essentially the perception of the universe as we experience it right now. So when we experience things, we experience them in a way that allows us to be able to understand it on a physical level. But as we have grown our knowledge of reality, we have been able to discover things that exist far beyond our own normal perceptions. We've learned about things like bacteria. We've learned about things like atoms. We've learned about things like the quantum realm. We've learned about things like solar systems, galaxies, universes, cosmos. Reality is how we interpret that information and how we perceive it. And one of the things that have become extremely important, especially in the last century or so, is understanding how our perception of reality is accurate or not. And that's where this comes into play.
Okay, so that's reality. So if I knock on my microphone, that's real.
If I as far as you can perceive it, yes.
As far as I knock on my wooden head, that's real to me, at least.
Correct.
Now, okay, so I think most people think they understand reality. What is non-local reality?
Okay, so this actually goes to a concept that's actually been around for about a century. It was a concept that was put forth essentially because of Einstein and the theory of relativity, talking about light. And without getting too far into the weeds, because I could spend a half hour just explaining the science behind it, there comes a simple argument between Einstein and who are known as the realists and the non-realists.
Okay.
The realists, who are Einstein and people who say this is how reality works, versus the non-realists say that light, the fundamental driving force that gives the universe the vast majority of its power, it's literally like the one big byproduct of almost all energy interactions, is not only a particle, it can also be a wave.
Okay, got that.
I've
heard that.
Right. Now, a particle means that it is a static form. It has one static state. Imagine it being like a dice, or a die that can either be in a 1 or a 2.
So
right?
it's like computers where you got the ones and zeros.
Right, like you have ones and zeros, like a bit or like a bit, right? So you have 1 or 2. And a wave is not like that, right? So basically a wave has the ability to have multiple numbers at the same time. So it's going to be 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. It's not even going to be 1 or 2. It could be 1 7 1 7 1 7 1 7. So the argument comes down to this: light, when it leaves the source of emission, when it leaves your light bulb, it is at a state. Let's call it 1. When it travels, it's like a wave. I don't know what I'm going to be. I don't know what I'm going to be. I don't know what I'm going to be. And as soon as it reaches you, the eye, it becomes 1 again. So from the beginning to where it hits your eye, it's the same thing. But that distance in the middle is completely and utterly random.
Okay. Got to slow down because you almost made me understand. Now, I got the light bulb, I got my eye. Okay, and it somehow just fluctuates in the middle.
Right.
Why can't it reach my eye and be a 7?
Why can't, well, that's the whole problem, right? Okay, so this is the argument, right? Because Einstein said that makes no sense, because if it could be random in between, why couldn't it be a seven?
Right.
And so the realists, the people like Einstein, said that can't work. If that's true, that is what he calls spooky. He calls it spooky magic at a distance, because it means that when things are traveling between point A and point B, weird stuff is happening that we can't understand. And Einstein was not about that. Now, the interesting part is this theory is considered known today. This theory is considered accurate today, that this randomization is a real thing, and that it's just kind of fait accompli. Nobody really thinks that light does not travel as a wave between point A and point B, but we could never prove it mathematically. We didn't have enough computing power, enough scientific power to be able to actually prove it mathematically until 2022. John
Just
Klaus,
last year.
this last year, John
Okay.
Klaus, Elaine Aspect, and Anton Zellinger, all three scientists were able to use experimentation and computation to prove, without a doubt, mathematically, that Einstein was wrong.
Oh man.
Light can be a particle and it can be a wave. And that, if he was around, he would have freaked out. And just so you know, Einstein is like the cornerstone of everything that we believe to be as real, because almost everything that he's predicted and said has stayed true for 100 years. In the scientific community, that is a very hard thing to do.
By the
Because
way, if you could go back in time and talk to Einstein and prove to him that he was wrong about this, would that have changed a lot of things that we believe right now?
um well, here's the thing. We as a community, as a society, or even as, I'm not a scientist, but I follow scientific journals. They all came around to this idea anyways. Einstein might have been a little bit more on the forefront of it, but I don't think it would have fundamentally changed anything, because just because we understand that this is happening, I don't think we would have gotten any faster in finding a way to prove it, or to be able to take advantage of this concept. Because
Okay.
when we talk about reality, what we're talking about is the idea of an observable event. And an observable event means that when we encounter it, it has to lock down its shape. And this was what I was talking about when we were talking about entanglement and we were talking about quantum theory. Because if you've ever talked about quantum theory, there is a very well known piece of a piece of it that, I'm sorry, my brain decided to just go completely batty there for a second,
Yes.
that says that a particle will react one way, and as soon as it's observed, it will react a different way.
But here's the question. Because we had the light bulb and we've got my eye.
Right?
So it's not that it's acting differently, it's acting the way that it was at the light bulb.
Yes, but here's the thing, though, is that we can only prove that because we can see it. So now this is where you go like, wait, what? So imagine this.
I guess.
Imagine, like, did you ever see the Doctor Who episode where you have the angels?
I did
And the
not see
angels
it.
could only, okay, so there's this concept of them being quantumly locked, which means that if anybody is observing them, they can't move. But if nobody is observing them, they're allowed to move freely. So
Right.
they look like statues. And as soon as you look away, they're able to run at you. You turn back and they get a little bit closer. And they get a little bit closer. And they get a little bit closer. So imagine that, right? Imagine every particle in the universe can be whatever it wants to be unless it's being observed.
Yes. Okay. Now we got to back up, because I don't think or maybe we did, and my slow brain didn't get it. We didn't describe what is non-local reality. So we have reality.
Right.
Back up and let's talk about what is non-local reality.
Okay, so when we're talking about reality not being real locally, what we're talking about is our perceptive reality. So, and this is where people go like, what? Reality isn't real? Yes, reality is real. We have to go to work. We got to pay our bills. Like, this is not like a simulation that I mean, it might be. But this is not something where we could just discard our experiences and say, it doesn't matter. In fact, this kind of pushes us in the other direction that says that we kind of matter more than we think we do, which is, as you've probably guessed, every time I guest on here, I kind of come back to that, because there's an existentialism that's going on, I think, with humanity as we've become more and more curious about science, about technology, and understanding our place in the cosmos. We feel smaller and less significant in that, giant machine that is, infinity. And the science keeps pointing towards there's probably a little bit more to it, but we just can't figure it out.
Okay.
And that's a cool thing. But when we talk about reality not being real locally, what we're talking about is we're talking about the fact that local reality is everything that we can perceive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we can see it, we can perceive it. That is local reality. So we can perceive our chair, the stars, the sun, space, the moon. All these things are being perceived, right? So
Right.
they are being more or less locked into a state. But we also know that because things are only going to be in a certain state when they're being observed and when they're being emitted from light, those are the only 2 points where they're going to equal 1. Everything in the middle between that is completely random, which means that our reality is only real as it's being observed.
Now, what if you couldn't see?
So again, vision is not necessarily the only way to be observed.
Okay, so
Mathematically,
it's not visual observance. It could
right.
be
So
sound.
mathematics points towards observation is not technically a sentient thing. Observation is something that happens when we mathematically try to discern an idea. So when we're talking about observation, yes, we can be talking about sentience, but we can also be talking about I'm trying to figure out how this works.
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically trying to add definition to a problem. And by giving it a definition, we're observing it, which means that we're changing its state because it's in flux, because we're trying to nail it down. The other side of this is there is also more prevailing evidence that intelligence, our sentience, is not solely in our own minds.
Okay.
And this is where we were talking about quantum entanglement.
Okay, but
So
back up. So we
Mhm.
still have to go back and tell everyone what non-local reality is. We still have to like
I,
nail
I
that
think
down.
I think we explained that, which is non-local reality means that if we can observe it, it's real, but
Yeah.
technically it's not because we're observing it.
So anything
So
that we can't see.
technically wouldn't exist. Like technically, we prove that if a tree falls in a forest, doesn't make a noise. If nobody's around to see it, technically no.
Okay, and the
Like
mathematics backs that up.
the mathematics backs that up. Technically,
Okay, so I don't have to have that discussion with my brother anymore.
right? Like philosophically, like we know that this planet is being observed at all times because we're here, we're observing the planet. So yes, of course it makes a noise. But if there was nobody around on this planet, if there was no observers, quote unquote, then no, it wouldn't make a noise.
Okay, got it.
So it is not locally real in the fact that as long as we have observers, we're here. But technically speaking, there's nothing real about us other than the fact that we're kind of making it real. Our own perception is making it real, which leads us to the quantum entanglement of our minds.
Okay, now go with quantum entanglement.
Okay, so quantum entanglement is really the idea that if you have one particle, it has a twin. And if one spins one direction, like let's say if you've ever, excuse me, if you've ever been able to hit one particle with another particle, they would equally distribute that energy between them, and one would twist one way and one would twist the other way, right?
Okay,
Like if you've ever used like a billiard ball, right? You hit a billiard ball with another billiard ball and they both take that energy and they kind of bounce away from each other,
correct.
right? They take opposite directions. So that's entanglement. Everything is entangled, meaning that if one thing is spinning this way, its counterpoint wherever it is in the cosmos is spinning another direction. It doesn't matter how far removed they are. So at the Big Bang, let's say you had two little brother particles hanging out at the Big Bang, bam, and one goes one way, one goes the other, right? And one
Uh-huh.
is in our backyard. It's floating over us right now, and it's going clockwise. On the other side of the cosmos, nowhere near us, at the exact same time, its brother is going counterclockwise. And if we found a way to change the one that we can observe, technically its twin out there in the cosmos would immediately change.
Okay, now with billiard balls, we can play with those on the pool table, and
Right.
we know when they hit, they might stop or they might bounce off each other.
Mhm.
Okay, but I can stop one billiard ball and the other one's going to keep spinning. So that's not exactly the same, is it? Or is it the same?
No, and don't take that metaphor too literally. I was using that
Okay.
as a metaphor to
Okay.
allow you to understand how the shared energy principle works, so
Got
that they're both mirroring each other's energy. So no matter what happens with one, the other one is going to mirror it the exact opposite. So if one is spinning clockwise, the other one will spin counterclockwise.
Mhm.
All right.
Have we proven this with mathematically also?
Yes, we know that this happens.
Okay.
So this is actually where quantum computing comes in. We're using qubits, which are basically quantum bits, which can have multiple states, and then we can actually create faster computations. And what we're discovering is The only way to get computers up to that level of computation that is remotely close to human thought, the speed and the ability to multitask so many things at the same time, is that it has to be on a quantum level, which indicates that human consciousness is not just in your gray matter. There is a quantum entanglement portion of it. There's part of our consciousness that is entangled in the quantum space.
Yeah, you lost me on that one. Okay, so go back to
Think of it
qubits.
like this. Think of it like
Qubits
this.
are not just ones and zeros; they have multiple states.
Correct. And that allows
Because
us to process numbers faster.
I'm going to go with that, but I don't understand it. How can
Okay,
it
so
have multiple states at the same time?
well, it's just like a wave particle, right? Like, so a wave, right? So remember we were talking about waves. Waves can have
Yeah.
multiple points. Same thing. All right. So a qubit can have multiple states. It doesn't
Okay.
have to be a 0 or 1. It's not a bit. It's a qubit, and it can have multiple states beyond a 0 or 1, which allows to have faster computing power.
How?
Okay, so if you're running everything, now we're getting to computer code. Now, you see, everybody who's watching this, you're going way into the weeds, but that's okay. I can explain it.
That's okay.
So,
I just want to understand.
that's all right. So when you're talking about computations, as we use them right now, everything is based on bits and bytes, right? We have zeros and ones. So it's binary. So it's 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and that's how we code everything. And that's fine. It works beautifully. Quantum allows us, or qubits allow us to add an extra number of variables in there. And each extra number variable allows you to more succinctly go through it. And it's almost as easy as explaining it as long division versus quick division, right? Like where you can make assumptions because you know how this number will divide out instead of going through the long division way. You just know you can jump to that number.
Okay.
Same kind of idea. Qubits allow you to skip the long division part. You don't have to show your work as much. You can just jump right to it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
I won't even go into how it actually works and how we know that qubits are.
Honestly, I would not be the person to explain this. And again, here's the thing. My talent has always lied with I am really good with understanding concepts. I am really good with understanding stories, and I'm also really good with being able to explain it to people. But if somebody said, show me your work, I'm going to point to the people who won the Nobel Prize and say they did it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm the expert, but I can explain what the experts are saying in a way that makes you go like, okay, that makes sense to me. That's usually where I fall into it, because if I can't understand it, then it scares the hell out of me. So I tend to be the guy who, once I get it, my friends go, okay, can you explain it to me now, please?
Okay.
So I'm that guy.
So tell me this then. How does non-local reality affect my life, your life, everyone's life, and why is it important?
So one of the things that we constantly talk about, and you and I have talked about this at least 2 or 3 other times, is how humanity, as we have expanded our consciousness, as we've expanded our ability to understand who we are as a species, as a person, as individuals, we keep coming back to this idea of nihilism, of what we do doesn't matter because the universe is so vast. The universe is so just magnificently, infinite compared to us, that we're these little specks of dust that are only here for a few decades and then we're gone. And you've heard me argue that everything we do actually matters. We have a chance to add to this definition of the universe. And what we're finding on a quantum level, on a real level, is our very existence here not only helps us define the universe in a literal sense. That's an asteroid. This is something we can do to understand how this universe works, and we can help the universe understand itself. Theoretically, we're also allowing the universe to take shape. Or, and this is the big or, there are other entities, other beings out there who are also observing the universe. And every one of us is allowing the universe to stay real because there is an observer.
Yes.
But let's say we're the only sentient life here. We know that the universe was here and that the universe has been going around for a long time. Something is observing it. What do we call that? Do you call it God? Do you call it the universe observing itself? What is it? We don't know. But the idea is fantastic. And from a scientific point of view, I've just jumped from this is interesting scientific talk to I can't prove a negative, which is kind of why most scientists won't try to argue whether God is real or not, because you can't prove a negative. Because in order to prove that God is real, you have to disprove every other theory in order to prove that God's the only answer. Right. So I tend to kind of go of, it does not hurt to think of some sort of entity that is just out there trying to understand creation. I don't necessarily mean that it is a Judeo-Christian God or, a Buddhist, kind of force out there. I tend to think of it as the cosmos literally being a self-aware thing trying to understand what it is. And we're all a part of that. We talk about a universe or we talk about a place where it's so violent and harsh and horrible and nasty. But then we also talk about all of the faiths of the universe, or at least of the world that we know of. And almost all of them are about basically accepting ourselves and accepting who we are and basically understanding and allowing ourselves to try to be better people, but understand when we fail. And I think there's something about the cosmos that is saying very, very strongly that what we do to each other matters, but we're going to mess up a lot. And that's okay because we're all part of the same thing. And we might hurt each other, but we're always trying to make it better. And that's part of the beauty of this, is that whether you're a humanist or whether you're, somebody who is a deep person of faith, understanding the basic physics and the basic concepts behind this allows us to start to anthropomorphize, but really it allows us to start to feel like there is a purpose beyond this. So our ability to define the universe literally by just being here is pretty spectacular.
That is spectacular. And if we're the only ones here, then like you've said before, we have an actual real purpose that is important. Less the universe just doesn't want to exist. So
right. I mean, otherwise, if there's no observers, then the universe blinks into existence, blinks out of existence, and it could have taken billions, trillions, quadrillions of years, septillions of years. Nobody would ever know because there's no observer to see it. In fact, doesn't even come into creation because there's on a quantum level, since there's no observer, does anything happen? Like the potential for it happens and nothing occurs and then it's just gone.
I want to go back. This is probably another whole show, but if everything started with a big bang, thank you, Sheldon, was there anything observing the big bang and then making the consciousness happen? Like, how does it all
work? Right. And those are the big questions. Right? We've adjusted what we think of the Big Bang. The Big Bang, a lot of people think it's one point in the universe, like all the energy and matter and pieces of the universe was basically squished down to an infinitesimally small, hot and energetic state that took just a picosecond for it to lose control of itself, and then it exploded outwards. And what we've really discovered is that it wasn't just one space. It was like, think of it like a layer cake, but imagine it just being a layer of nothingness and just multiple layers. And this layer spans out to infinity. It's just out there. But one of these layers just got compressed so tight at all places across all infinity at the same time that it just couldn't take it anymore. And then it went pop. That's screwed more what we're thinking. I'm sorry?
Screwed up everybody's thing.
Right. And basically, as they said in Arthur Adams' book, the universe was created, and most people have agreed that was a bad move. Or I think I'm paraphrasing on that one, but Douglas Adams. I'm sorry, Douglas Adams. Well, Arthur Adams is a different guy.
Yeah, Douglas Adams. By the way, I just realized from our discussion here, and I think I realized it last night while I was listening to the Stormlight series, book 2. Brandon Sanderson uses his quantum entanglement in the books, where he starts talking about how things work. And if you haven't read the books, you wouldn't get it anyway. Not you, but one would not get it anyway. But he absolutely is using quantum mechanics, quantum physics in his book to describe how certain things happen. He just built a platform where when one goes down, one goes up, and he hooks it into these crystals, and it's all kinds of cool stuff. So I am going to have to do some research on him and see just how far he really goes into quantum mechanics.
I mean, and that's the beautiful part is, we're so afraid these days. And this is something I've been coming to a realization of. We've been coming so far, so fast as a species. And this is something I mentioned in our private chat, talking about the idea of transhumanism, the idea of technology changing us on a fundamental level and how people are afraid of that. And what we're really verbalizing when folks are starting to embrace these weird conspiracy theories of new world orders and oh no, the machines are going to take over, what are we really expressing with these fears and these conspiracy theories? It all comes down to essentially us not allowing ourselves to understand some of these conversations that we're having. Like
Yeah.
when somebody tells me that local reality isn't real, I go, what are you talking about? You better use small words for me, sir. Because that's a scary idea, like that's terrifying. And if you don't have somebody who can sit down with you and talk with you about it, because let's be fair, archaeologists, horrible at naming things, right? They're horrible at telling really interesting stories. Why are we obsessed with the idea of Atlantis, the lost empire that's out there, that's supposedly out there? Everybody's convinced that there's a lost empire that was out there, instead of looking at real lost empires that are gone. Me being Puerto Rican, I come from an ancient tribe of people called the Taino. All right. And the Taino are basically cousins to the Aztec and to the Incas. They all kind of come from the same region, as far as, Latin America. And there are wonderful stories of ancient civilizations that are gone, and we've discovered them. But we don't tell the stories well. We don't tell the science well. We don't tell the stories of our own past well. So people start to embrace these wild ideas of, aliens did this, or, Atlantis did that, or, we can't embrace machines because they're going to take over the planet. And our fears drive us because we're not able to comprehend, or the people who can comprehend it are not able to tell the story in a way that others can experience it without being afraid, which is where I hope I help.
You do help, and I understand things actually just this much better because you do help. So thank you for that.
I try. I really do try.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. You know what? We're gonna do something easier because my head was exploding just for a second there.
Yeah,
and
seriously, we gotta pick an easy topic next time, like
we
something
will do
super
that.
easy. Yeah.
There's one I want to do on comic books, so we'll do that. And I've got a couple people picked out, and we should do a panel on comic book superheroes. So,
okay.
But for right now, we are going to play this or that with Shaun Rosado, and here's how this is going to work. I'm just going to ask you questions. You got two choices. You cannot say, well, both. Not fair. You got to pick
okay.
one or
The
the
first
other.
example you gave me, I'm like, well, it could be both. And you're like, no, you have to pick one. I'm like, but
Yep.
Okay.
Nope. Shaun has to pick one or the other. Here we go.
I don't know.
And these are fun. They may or may not even be real, but
okay.
Pick one. Multiverse or simulation?
Multiverse.
Okay. Invisibility or time travel?
Ooh. Time travel.
Yeah, me too. Dark matter or dark energy?
Dark matter.
Gravity or electromagnetism?
Like that's like picking your favorite Beatle, but I'm gonna go with gravity.
Mine's Lennon, used to be McCartney.
Okay, fair enough. I'm a big Ringo guy.
Really? Okay.
No, no. I don't. They're honestly, I mean, you're either Lennon or normally you're Lennon or McCartney. Even though George truly is the overlooked gem of that group. I mean, Harrison, like that dude is awesome. Like, by so way, you know what? No, I'm gonna say George. Screw it.
Okay. George. I have a theory, by the way. I created this a long time ago. There's 4 Beatles. They're all 4 very different. And I said you can put together a good band if you can find your 4 Beatles. They're all and just get that little synergy going. So theory, I don't know if it works or not. I haven't tried it. So,
okay.
Parallel universe or alternate timeline?
Okay, what was the first one again?
Parallel universe or alternate timelines?
I mean, that's basically the same thing.
Okay, so you're saying both?
No, I'm just saying that you're basically asking the same question, just with two. It's like you're asking dark cocoa or milk chocolate. Like, it's both it's both chocolate. It's like
they're chocolate, but they're different flavors.
Yeah. Okay. So parallel. So parallel or alternate realities. I'll say parallel.
Okay, I would go with alternate, but that's just me. Okay, I know you're gonna just kill me on this one. Schrodinger's cat, alive or dead?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it is. That's a both.
I'm sorry, that one you're getting.
That's an observed one, right? You got to observe that to see which one.
That is an observable one. We don't know until we open the box. Which, ironically, here's the funny part: Schrodinger's cat was used as a thought experiment to try to disprove that. He was a realist, and he was like, "You can't be in both states. You can't. The cat's either alive or it's dead." And so then, so like that, like the whole point of Schrodinger's cat was to try to prove that you can't, like the cat's either dead or alive. You don't have to observe it for it to happen. And they're like, but don't like. So then, like the people who are non-realists who are correct were like, but do you?
Yeah.
And
You-
so he's like, son of a bitch. So oh, I'm sorry, but like yeah, like he gets mad. But no, for the sake of argument, I would say the cat is alive until proven dead.
Okay, wormhole or Stargate?
Wormhole.
Ah, really? Are you gonna go? What is it inside there's the event horizon and then there's the singularity, right? Which one do you want to get
Well, I mean, the
into?
event
You
horizon
gotta
is
pass over
literally
the event horizon to get into the
right,
singularity.
exactly. So the event horizon is literally the edge. It's called the accretion disk, which basically is where all of the matter and light starts to get into it. And then as you get through the event horizon, things start to spaghettify, and then they go into the actual singularity. And since we're nitpicking here, a Stargate technically is a wormhole.
It
So
is.
it is. It's just an artificially made wormhole by the Goa'uld. And yeah, I'm just saying those guys. So actually, it wasn't even the Goa'uld; it was the ancients who made it.
Yeah, I keep getting Goa'uld mixed up with Raj Goa'uld. Yeah,
Ra's al Ghul.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man,
no.
if Batman's like arch nemesis rolled up and said, "I built Stargates," that would be a crossover I'd show up for. Batman versus the Goa'uld. Oh
Yeah,
man, they'd be so screwed.
that
Oh,
would be.
but yeah, I would
Um,
say wormhole definitely, or what do we say? We said black hole or
or I said wormhole or Stargate, but they
wormhole
are
Stargate.
kind
Yeah,
of the same thing. It's just the Stargates are directed, and you can figure out where they're going.
right. Yeah.
Once you
Technically, we
turn the
could do that
dials
with
right.
wormholes if we could figure out the math. But
Yeah,
like, yeah, like the cool part about wormholes is that is like that is bleeding edge idea. Like one day we'll figure that out, but we're going to, as a species, we're going to be way smarter by then. So,
I think we have to figure it out because we come up with all the things, and
mhm.
just because we can't figure them out now doesn't mean we won't figure them out.
I think that's true. I think that on some level, we eventually figure out everything we can dream of.
Yeah,
We just keep dreaming bigger and faster, and it just means it just takes more time for us to get there.
absolutely.
So we do kind of manifest our own reality in that way, right? Like we want, like one day we will have flying cars. Nobody will probably fly them; they'll probably fly themselves. But like
Right,
one day, centuries from now, there probably will be flying vehicles out there, and we'll just be sitting in the back seat, hanging out, watching, I don't know, TikTok or something.
right. Or we'll be
Which,
inside the machine and we
or,
won't care where we're going. It's like, yeah.
and now we're back to transhumanism all over again, right? So, okay, what's your next one?
Big Bang Theory or Steady State Theory?
I fall on the Big Bang, but the modified version that we were talking about, the
Okay.
more readily acceptable one. So yeah.
How about time travel or time dilation?
Oh man. Okay, so in this case, which one would I rather be able to experience, or which one do I fall into the camp of?
Experience.
I'm gonna go with time travel, even though time dilation would be cool. But knowing me, I dilate time as I'm like on an airplane that's crashing, and
Right.
that would just suck. So I'm gonna go with time travel versus time dilation. But time
Okay.
dilation could be a really cool thing to see.
Time dilation would be very cool. Does the by the way, since we're talking about it real quick, which one is the Flash experience? He does both,
He
but
technically does both.
yeah.
It's all perceptual for him, so it really depends on what's happening to him. In fact, there is an issue in the Flash where he's on an airplane and he talks about the fact that why this is Wally. Wally talked about why Barry Allen would never get on a plane because he was always terrified it would crash, and he would kick into hyperspeed and he would have to experience a crash over the span of months because he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And
Mm,
in that issue, there is a plane accident where he's able to save the plane, but this woman gets sucked out of it and he has to jump out of the plane to save her. And he's like, I only run fast. How do I save a woman in midair? I have no way of getting traction. And it's
right.
all the entire issue is him falling, trying to catch this woman and save her. It's maybe one of my favorite issues of the Flash, like ever. It's a
We're
fantastic issue.
we're totally gonna bring that one up when we do the panel. um, particle accelerator or the cool space telescope we got now?
Well, I gotta choose between wait. I gotta choose between space telescopes that allow us to see the universe or a particle accelerator.
I'm just saying, which one?
I'm going to go with particle accelerators just because of the fact that particle accelerators will allow us to create and understand fundamental forces far more clearly, which would then allow us to create cooler telescopes than the ones that we have today. So we can just skip over our cool telescopes.
Okay.
Um, So I think particle accelerators will ultimately get us cooler technology. So I'm gonna pick them. But damn you for making me pick between two very cool pieces of tech. Like seriously, like why would you do that? Why would you say telescope? Like awesome freaking telescopes.
Just saying, they're
like
out there. We
seriously,
gotta pick one.
like seriously, the Webb telescope is so amazing. Like I tell people like all the time, I'm like, do you realize what that thing is doing? Like, do you realize how we have used radio telescopes on the planet, and we turn like an entire portion of the Earth into a telescope in order to observe one point in space, and this thing can just go out there. Like, it's amazing what we can do.
So, by the way, here's a question I got besides Star Trek or Star Wars. If you could take one piece of technology off of Star Trek, I was going to say the Enterprise, but we'll say off Star Trek, all the series, what would it be?
Replicators.
Replicators?
Replicators all day long.
I would probably take the computer, but yeah, I love the replicators.
Replicators allow us one thing that we do not have right now, which is unlimited resource management.
That is true.
If, like, seriously, all the problems that we experience today is a lack of resources. By making replicators something that is easily distributable, something that we can create and we can have in our homes, we can literally, like, think about it. Technically, it's just taking raw energy and it's turning it into something. So let's say we needed to create cleaner energy. Okay, well, we can replicate all the parts we need for our own solar panels. We can, let's say we needed to collect carbon out of the atmosphere. We can tell it to specifically grab the carbon items and turn them into something else. Food, whatever so you're talking about, that takes care of your food resources, that takes care of your technology resources, that takes care of your creating more materials in order in which to then create a more stable energy grid. Water, I mean, literally, replicators solve all of our problems.
That kind of kills all the people who are into capitalism.
Yes, but again, when you talk
I'm not
about
saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying it's
no, but like, here's the thing I talk about with people a lot when I talk about capitalism. I don't necessarily believe capitalism is a bad thing. Correct. I believe unrestricted greed is a bad thing. Yes. And when you look at how our society has been moving in the last couple decades, and now you got me on a society rant, so this is your fault. But when you look at it, the distributed wealth of our world has skewed more and more towards fewer and fewer people. In fact, all of the new wealth generated in the last 3 years is 3 times skewed more towards that small percentage. People call them the 1%. I hate that term, but the uber rich than ever in the history of our society. So yeah, we're making tons of money. We're making all sorts of new money, but nobody's getting it. And that's because of the extraordinary greed. And at some point they go, oh, well, our profits have to stay high in order for our shareholders to blah, blah, blah. And my philosophy has always been this: if your people cannot enjoy the fruits of their society, then you are exploiting them. And I feel that it's not socialism to say this. Everybody should have free healthcare, or not free healthcare, but everybody should have access to healthcare that can save their life. Everybody should have access to education to help move themselves towards a better future, and everybody should have access to a wage that allows them to work a simple one job that can basically pay for their home, pay for their food, and pay for them and their family. If you do not reach that threshold, then you as a society is failing, and you're just saying, oh, well, I had to suffer, so you have to suffer, and that works against us. And that's
totally gonna have you on another show, and we're gonna talk about this. We'll bring in some naysayers and go with it for sure.
You've been trying to get me to argue with somebody. This is the second time in a row now where you're like, I'm going to bring in the opposing side. I'm like,
I can't argue. I'm just here talking. I just raise the questions.
You know what? You're Jerry Springer. You're like, here's a knife. Do something with a knife. Like that. Like that's you.
Here's the knife. By the way, is that Baby Yoda in the background?
Yes, that is a Baby Yoda. Many Baby Yodas, but yeah, that's our Baby Yoda cookie jar, and that is our Christmas Eeyore.
I love that.
And then if I move my head, there's my Star Trek little.
Okay, nice. So, we got you. We'll be on again for sure. We anyone who wants to stay in touch with Shaun, check him out at Pop Cycled, and it's just going to be an amazing thing. I super appreciate you always coming on and being with us, because it is always so fun. And
thank you.
We might go into Star Trek versus Star Wars one day.
No. We don't do that argument. Okay, first off, we do not take any hate in this house. This is how do I put this?
It sounded like you are on different sides of this than your wife is.
We're bilingual. here are not bilingual. We're multicultural here. We love Star Wars and Star Trek. But yes, we accept both in this. But if people push us, Star Wars is always our first love. But yes, Star Wars is always our first love. But I love Star Trek.
Okay.
And I don't believe you have to choose between them. Just like I don't believe you have to be a Marvel or a DC person. I am a DC guy, but I love both.
All right. We're going to have that discussion. Thank you so much for being here, sir. I appreciate it. I will definitely catch you in the future. Bye, everybody.
Sir. Thank you so much.